In this video, I will teach you Roblox scripting basics in 10 minutes. First, we need to open the Explorer and Properties. So go to the View tab here and open these two buttons right here, and then also open the output window right here, which will help us debug code. And you always want to have this output window open when you're scripting. Then we need to make a script in order to write code. So go ahead and insert a script right here into server script service. Generally, this is where most of your scripts will be. So first I'm going to show you how to use the print function. So a function is just something that contains code and only executes when you call that function. So usually a function, you can tell if it's a function if it has parentheses right after it. So in this case, I'm going to teach you how to use the print function. So how the print function works is anything you put inside of the parentheses, it will be displayed as a message in the output window. So for example, if I put I like cats and I go ahead and run this script, you can see here it's prints I like cats, and you can put whatever text you want as long as it has quotations around it, which will define it as a string. So if I just spam my keyboard like this and then run the script, you can see it prints that as well. And then you can also print numbers. So I'll go ahead and get rid of this. And numbers don't need quotations, so you can put 100 here, for example. If we were to run that, you can see it runs 100. And then if we were to put a large number like this, it will also run that. So yeah, that's the print function. It's really useful for debugging code. I use it pretty much every day. So next up is variables. In order to create a variable, you type in the local keyword and then whatever variable name you want. So I'm just gonna put variable here, but again, you can put wherever you want. You can put apple or cats or this. So I'm just gonna put variable, and then we're just gonna print this variable. And ignore that red line. And if we were to run this code, you'll see that it'll print nil. Nil means nothing. There's no value. See, so we're going to assign a value to this variable now. Let's just assign it to 100. Variables store values, which is really handy. So now if we print this, it will print 100. And make sure when you're printing variables, you have no quotation marks around it. It's just the variable name. And then we can also put a string here. So let's put I like cats. And then we print this. And it'll output I like cats. So again, variables store values, but there's also different types of values. I've already shown you the string and the number value type. There's some other ones too that are important to learn. There's one called a Boolean value, which this is how you spell it, right? Like this. And a Boolean value can either be true or false, and again, no quotations because it's not a string. So if we run this, you can see it runs true, and then the other value it can be is false. That's the only thing a Boolean can be. So you got true and you got false right there. And then next up, you can also store an object. So for example, let's go ahead and make a part here. So part, and then let's make it a little bigger. Okay, so we got this part here and this part. So we can actually tell the variable to store this object. And how we do that is, so we need to first locate the object. So the part is obviously inside of the game, right? So we're going to type in game. And then the part is also under this workspace service right here. So we type in workspace, and then we type in the name of the part, which is part. So you go from top down. So game, workspace, part, and then we can print this variable right here. And you can see it prints the part. And then likewise, if we were to move this part, let's say into another location like lighting, for example, because it's not on workspace anymore, this code will not run. If we actually run this code, it'll error like this: part is not a valid member of workspace, which basically just translates to, hey, we can't find this object in workspace. So simple fix, we just changed this to lighting because lighting is part of the game and part is under lighting. And then if we were to run this now, you can see it printed part. So location matters for the objects. Now value types are really useful because you can change really any data in Roblox with it. So I'll give you an example. So we have this part right here, right? And we can change the transparency like so. We can change the reflectance, we can change the color. We can change all of these values right here. Of course you can do it in Studio, but sometimes you need to do it in a script. Like if you're making a fireball or something, you need to create the object in the script and edit it in the script. So let's go ahead and do that. So first we need to specify where the object is. So the object is again inside of game, inside of workspace. So game.workspace.part. And then we want to specify what property we want to change. So for now, I'm going to change the transparency, and again, value types are important. So for transparency, it takes in a number value type, which you can tell by this number slider here usually, or if you can just input a number like this, that usually means it's a number value type. So we type in what property we want to change, transparency, and remember casing is important. Make sure the casing is correct, make sure it's spelled correctly. And then we want to set it to a value. So I'm going to set it to 0.5. Again, it takes in a number. So now if we were to run this, you can see the part is semi-transparent. And if we were to check, it's 0.5. And then again, we can do this for the reflectance property as well. So I'm just copy and paste that. And instead of transparency, we'll change reflectance. And we'll just make this 1, right? And then you can see we got a little shiny part here. And it doesn't really necessarily be 1. Like I know the slide here only goes from 0 to 1, but the magic thing about scripting is that you can put in whatever value you want. I could put in like whatever that number is right there, and it'll work and it'll look kind of weird as you see there. So again, it looks pretty weird. So that's really cool about scripting. Okay, next up, we can also change string-based properties. Remember, string is just text. So for example, this name property is a text-based property. You can tell because I can type in whatever I want. That's a string-based property. So I'm going to change the name of the object. So we're just going to get rid of this. And we need to locate the object like so. And then we need to specify what property we want to change. So .name and then the value we want. Remember that a string requires quotations. So we put quotes around and then we type whatever name we want. So I'm just going to put Apple. And then if we were to run this game, you can see it changed the name to Apple. All right. And then next properties will be these checkboxes right here. So a checkbox, it can either be checked or unchecked like this. So that is a Boolean value because a Boolean value can only be true or false. So let's do anchored. So right now anchor is false. So if I were to run the game, this part falls down, right? See, so that's what anchored does. And then so let's say I want to anchor it. So part.anchored is equal to true. And then if we were to run the game now, it won't fall down because the checkbox is now true set by the script. And then similarly, we can also do another checkbox. Let's do cast shadows. So you can see there's a shadow right there. So we can just turn that to false. Right now it's set to true, but I'm gonna turn it to false. So instead of anchored, we do cast shadow. Remember, specify the property you want to change and then set the value. So we turn that to false now. We run it. And you can see there's no shadow now. And then next up will be these 3 numbers right here. So you would think this is a number value, but it's not because there's 3 of them. And if you open it up, you can actually see X, Y, C. So what this is actually a 3-dimensional number. And Roblox has a special value for that one. So you can't type in, well, hold on, let me do this. So let's change the size, but you can't type in this, okay, because it's not a number value type. This is why value types are important. If you know what value type a property takes, then you can change it. So you can, so what this value is called a vector 3 value, okay. So we're going to type in what value type you want. We want the vector 3 value type, like so, and then we want to make a new value, so .new, and this creates a new vector 3 value, and you can see it's a function because of the parentheses. And then we just put in whatever number we want. Roblox is nice, it tells us what to put in. So you see X number, so let's just do 20, 20, 20, And then if we were to run this code right here, you can see the part got a lot bigger. And then we can also do, I mean, really big, like 2000 right here. So, yeah. And then just for another example, let's do another vector 3. Let's see, I mean, anything that has 3 numbers on it, like any of these. Actually, I think these 2 maybe you can't do it on, but generally speaking, anything with 3 numbers you can change it. So let's just change the orientation. So we do that, and then we do orientation, like this so. And then again, 3 numbers, so it takes in vector 3. So we're just gonna put in just a random value here. I think this takes degrees. Oh, actually no, let's put 40. Oh, it's gone. Oh, okay. Well, I'm pretty sure it rotated, and it probably flinked because it rotated. But yeah, let me make sure. So it's anchor it. Okay, so this is where coding is useful. You can anchor it, or you can do it in Studio, but this is way cooler. So yeah, so now you see it's rotated and it's anchored now, so it doesn't fling. Okay, and then we'll do brick color. So just like the vector 3, how you need to make a new vector 3, we need to do something for brick color. Again, brick color is not a number, it's not a string, it's not a bullet, it's its own little thing here. So this property takes in a brick color value type. So we'll go ahead and type in again the property we want to change to brick color, and then the value type that we want to create, which is just brick color. And then again, we want to make a new of that value type, and then we'll just pass in whatever color we want. We'll just do bright red. And go ahead and run that. And now you can see it's red. Yeah, so that is changing properties, and you can do this for any object. I could do it in lighting if I wanted to. Like I know that this brightness property is a number value because of this number slider, right? So I just, again, locate the object I want to change, which is lighting, game.lighting. And then the property I want to change, so that's brightness. And then the value I want to set it, let's just set it to 10. This might hurt your eyes. And yeah, you can see it's a lot brighter now. So if you know how to change properties of a part, you should know how to change properties of any object in Roblox. Okay, let's go and delete this. So next up is if statements, or conditional statements, however you want to call it. So if statements lets your code know which code to execute. I'll go ahead and give an example. So again, we have print, I like cats, right? And then if we were to run that, it would display the message in the output, right? Well, let's say I only want to run if there's a condition. So if true, then, so this is how you make an if statement. And then go and put this print statement here. And this code will only run if this condition right here is true. Okay, so if I were to run this code right now, you would see that it prints I like cats. But then if I were to put it to false, then it won't print at all. You see there's no printing because it is false. And you might be wondering, why is that useful? Like, you just, like, when you always want to set it to true, I'm like, well, you can make your own conditions that aren't, true or false. So for let's make a variable called number and set to 10, and then we'll say if number is more than 5, then it prints this. And then if we were to run this now, so let's run this in output here, you can see it prints I like cats because 10 is greater than 5. You can also just put 10 here, and you don't have to use a variable, but I like variables. And then if we were to say change this value to 0 and then run this again, let's clear that, you can see it doesn't print. It kind of looks like it does, but it doesn't. If we were to run this in a game, you can see it doesn't print at all because 0 is less than 5. And this is really useful because there's so many instances where, like, let's say, I don't know, you make a part and it damages you when you touch it, but it only damages you if you're on like a certain team. Now this is where if statements are really useful, because you can be like, hey, only damage if you're on this certain team. So that's if statements. So if you want to put multiple if statements, if you want multiple conditions, you can just write multiple if statements like this, right? That would work. This is usually not wise because it's not too efficient, because you're doing a lot of checks. So usually, I mean, sometimes you'll have to do it, but usually you can use else if statement. So else if number is greater than, let's just do, I don't know, 0. Let's just do 2. So let's change this print. So number is greater than 5, and then number is greater than 2 for the second one. And how this would work is, so it runs the first if statement. So if number is greater than 5, and then if it is, then it'll print this. If it's false, then it'll check the else if statement, and then, you know, it basically runs the same way as the if statement. So we'll do number 6 right now, and then we're to run that. You can see it prints number is greater than 5. And then if we were to put 4, which is less than 5 but more than 2, I'm going to print that. You can see it prints numbers greater than 2. But then if we were to put 0, so neither of these conditions pass, then you see it doesn't print anything at all. However, if you want code to run, regardless, if everything else fails, you can have something called an else statement. So how an else statement works is that if this condition falls and this condition falls, then it'll run this code here. So I'll print I don't know, and then we'll run it, and you can see it prints I don't know because both of these conditions are false right here. Next up is loops. So a loop is something that repeats code, really handy. So the basic one is a while true do loop. So, or it's called a while loop. So while true do, and then print I like cats. And then, so loops run really fast. So you'll want to put a wait command to avoid crashing. This just makes it where it waits before it runs the code. You definitely want this in order to not crash. So then if I were to run this code right here, you can see it repeatedly prints I like cats, right? And a while loop will only run if this condition is true. If we change this to false, it won't run at all, like so. So it works exactly the same way as an if statement, except it loops, okay? Yeah, and then we can also run a loop a set number of times, so that's called a for loop. So for I equals 1, 10, do, then print I like cats, and then if we were to run this, it would print I like cats 10 times. And if we change this number right here, this is the end number, to 20, it'll run it 20 times, like so. So you can see it runs 20 times right there. And what's also really cool about the for loop is that it gives us a variable, this I variable right here. Again, it's just a variable, so you can rename the variable to whatever you want. I can put, you know, this and it'll still work, but most of the time people just put I, and then the I variable gives you essentially these numbers right here. So if I go ahead and print it, so let's clear this, and if I were to print this, you can see it prints from 1 to 20, like so. And if I were to, let's say, put a wait command here to kind of show the progress a little bit. So if I put a wait command, you can see it kind of did it slowly so we could see the progress. So that's really handy. Yeah, that's a for loop. There's another loop called a repeat loop, but I honestly never used that one, and I don't really recommend anyone to use that one. So yeah, I'm not going to talk about it. Okay, so after loops we have functions. So again, a function is something that stores code and doesn't execute until you call it. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a function. So remember, printing was a function, but you can make your own functions. So to make your own function, it's local function, and then whatever function name you want. So you can type in this, or you can type in apple, just whatever function name, okay? And then make sure to put parentheses, because you need parentheses to make a function. Then we'll go ahead and print, again, I like cats. And then if we were to run this code right here, you can see nothing happens, because again, a function stores code, and in order for it to run the code, you need to call it. To call the function, you just type in whatever function, like this, and put parentheses right after it, kind of like using the print function. Now if we were to run this, you can now see it says, I like cats. And what's really nice about this is that you can put whatever code you want. So let's say, you know, I like cats, I like dogs, I don't know, I like cars. And then we can, instead of just copy and pasting this like multiple times like this, it's way cleaner to just copy the function call like this. So let's say I want to run it 3 times, I put it 3 times, and then I run, and then you can see it prints all those things 3 times. And then you can also combine it with the thing we learned previously with the loops. So if I want to not copy it, paste it 3 times, I can just make a loop and I'll run it 3 times like this. All right, you can see it does the same thing. Or you can use a while loop if you want to. I'll make sure to put a wait command for the while loop. And you can see it runs repeatedly like that. Very cool. And then you can also pass in data into the function. So for example, let's say I want to pass in 100, right? And so this is called an argument. And then we have to make a parameter for it, which is just another word for variable name, basically. So you just put whatever name you want. I'm just going to put, I don't know, some number. Again, name can be whatever you want. And then we can just print that value. And now if we were to run this, it will print 100. And something you notice here is that you can put whatever value you want in here. I could put, like, you know, again, I like cats, right? And it'll do the same thing. I like cats. And so we actually just made our own kind of like custom print function right here, because it works very similar to a print function where you put in whatever you want and it displays it to the output. So that's why a print is a function, but it's a built-in function. And then you can also make your own custom functions. So that's very handy. And it's just to avoid code, code copy and paste and organization. It's really handy. Okay. So next up, so it's handy that we can call functions whenever we want, but sometimes you want to call a function when a certain thing happens. For example, when a player touches a part, or when a player, clicks on their mouse, etc. Okay. So that's called events. Okay, and events are kind of advanced, so there will be a separate video on that, but I'll just teach you like the basics of it. So we'll go ahead and make a part here, and then make it lower, right? So there's a lot of events for objects, so let's first create a function. So let's just, again, the function can be whatever you want. I'm just going to call it onTouch because that makes sense. And then I'm going to print I didn't touch. Okay. And then so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it where when a, how do I make a character? There it is. Okay, so let's say I'm this character right here. I want to make it where whenever I touch this part, it prints or it changes color. It doesn't matter what you want it to do. I just want it to run my function. Okay. So we're going to do that. So first we need to specify what object we want, right? So again, this is the part. It's in workspace inside of game.workspace.part. Then we want to specify what event we want. There's plenty of events. So if you scroll down here, all these lightning symbols right here are all events right here. And specifically, we want the touch event. So if I type in touch, you can see it right there. And there's some code sample right there or whatever. So I'll do that. And then we want to connect this touch event to this function right here. So I'm going to literally type in connect, and then we just type in the function name. So this is the function name right here. Again, if your function name is different, if it's something like this, then you need to put that in here. It's just a name. Okay, and then if we were to run this code, so let's say I play this game. And then, I don't know, okay, it's taking a while to load. All right, so if I touch this part, you can see it's printing I've been touched every time I walk on it. So that's really cool. And there's a bunch of events for a lot of objects, so it's a bit out of scope for this video. But something else really cool is that the touch event also fires for other objects. So let's say I turn this, let's say I make this object fall, right? Let's go ahead and play it. And you can see it prints because it's, touching it. And that's it for this video. Remember, this is just the general idea of scripting. I'll be making dedicated videos on each topic that will explain more in detail. If you liked the video, feel free to click the like button, subscribe, and join my Discord to chat with me and other developers.